That's hard. That's hard to say. That's hard to say. I give you a few examples of from very early stage to very late stage. From very early stage, two startups were obviously I will be very biased. One of them, which is a FinTech Hong Kong. FinTech Hong Kong is the largest ecosystem for FinTech in Hong Kong, and they launched the Supercharger, and the Supercharger will be one of the, or perhaps the most unique accelerators for FinTech in Asia. And what they're doing is that in their accelerator, they are taking early stage Asian startups and mixing them with late stage European or American startups that want to move to Asia. And by mixing all of that, they're trying to find the next Google of finance, but for Asia. The second one, where we'll also be very biased because I have invested in them, is a Lutz Bank. And Lutz is basically a bank for students in the UK, because there are a lot of students, including international students coming to the UK, who always find it challenging to open a bank account. What is very interesting for them is not only the vertical specialization on students. What is interesting is their business model, is the way they're trying to make money. So unlike a traditional bank where they would make money from transaction fees or they would make money from income, here they would try to make money by using data monetization, data that they have on their students. So that is interesting for me. That would be the way that Google would be monetizing the data if Google wanted to create a bank. So that's on the early stage, I would say. On the, let's say, mid-stage kind of startups, there's a sector I really like, which is SMEs. With two companies, one of them, which is a FinExcap, SME financing in France, SME in the sense of invoice financing. It's a model I really like, and the reason why I really like is that it's very streamlined, it's very optimized. It's all about doing something that has been done forever, but in a much more efficient and digitalized way. Pretty much the same for Cantox, which does currency transfers, but for SMEs. Again, this SME space is quite interesting because it's not the same as the retail space in terms of marketing, etc., etc. But on the other hand, the transactions can be quite big. So the marketing is quite interesting. So that would be on the mid-stage side. In general, I really like things which are linked to SME. And for late-stage companies, I really like. 3 of them start with a K, and one of them not. So I couldn't find 4 that started with a K. The first one, I think, would be Klarna. Klarna is a very interesting company that started on something which is very mundane, which is basically how to pay on a website. The equivalent of PayPal, you create a website, how can I get paid? And I'll spare you the story, you really need to go to their website. But what is amazing from Klarna is that they started as pretty much an online checkout kind of system. And because they were doing that, they had to extend short-term credit, and because they had to extend short-term credit, they needed to have deposits, and so they bought the equivalent of a bank. And because they started to have all of that, they're starting pretty much to look like a bank, but they started from something which was very, very mundane. And I think that's a lot of the things that we will see, which are applications that will start from something that doesn't seem that important within the financial system, and as startups are being built and are getting bigger and bigger, suddenly you feel that you need to have lending, and you need to have borrowing, and you need to have currency transfers, etc., etc. And then suddenly it really looks like some kind of large financial institution. So Klarna is a good example. The other one is Cabbage. Cabbage is one of the first companies that use data-led lending. So lending with real-time information, in that case information linked to your account on eBay, Amazon, PayPal, etc. It's the future. It's the future in the sense that I think all banks will at one point also use data-led lending instead of manual lending. And Cabbage was one of the pioneers in that space. The third one is Credit Karma, so also with a K. And Credit Karma is all about credit scoring. And credit scoring is definitely one of the fields I really like. But one of the main challenges of credit scoring is, where do you start? This idea, which is this big vision of having all the financial information and doing something around that, it's a great idea. It will happen, but when? And Credit Karma actually starts with exactly the same vision, but they start with something which can be very easily monetizable. So that's the interesting part of Credit Karma. And the last example for me would be SoFi, which is peer-to-peer lending in the US. And there are a lot of peer-to-peer lending companies in the US. What I like about SoFi is the profile of the founders. SoFi is a company which is around peer-to-peer lending with founders that come from traditional finance. And so what the benefit of this kind of setup is that the founders do not have to reinvent the world. So for example, SoFi was one of the first peer-to-peer lender to use securitization, to have rated securitization rated by S&P, for example. So all the things that you do in traditional finance, they know about it, and they just replicate it using new processes, new innovation, new technology. And I think that's the kind of profile which is very interesting in FinTech.